I came from the mud. There's dirt on my hands.
Welcome to Build an Iconic Life podcast. I'm your host, Chris Whitehead, and this podcast is dedicated to help you build a life with zero regrets by focusing on how you have everything you need to stand up, stand out, and live life on your terms. Let's dive right in. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Build an Iconic Life. I'm here with Megan Gaul. She is what I would consider a fitness and nutrition expert, and I can say that honestly without knowing her extremely well because she was able to successfully shed 100 pounds of body weight, and guess what? Not have the yo-yo. She's been able to maintain a healthy lifestyle, and in this episode, I think we're going to cover how simple it is to actually keep yourself healthy once you make the decision to do it. So Megan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that intro. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. So let's start off with what precipitated, were you always overweight as a young person and you just finally had enough, or what happened?
Well, I wouldn't call myself always overweight as a child or a young adult, but I definitely had some roots of treating food in a way that did not serve my health long term.
Sure.
So what that looked like was, not being growing up in a family where I didn't have full control over the availability of food, meaning
Sure.
My parents were very much focused on like 3 meals a day. Here's when the snacks happen. In between felt like I didn't have as much control over that. I think that played a big role in me treating food a little bit with a scarcity mindset. So once the reins come off, once you're at college, you can eat out more often, as much as you want. You can kind of dive into whatever you were discouraged from as a kid. Yep. I think that really played a big role. And the other piece of that is during that time, learning that food was so enjoyable that it was the easiest way to cope when stress popped up, when I had tough emotions. As a young adult, that was my main coping mechanism, and it was so effective that I used it to the exclusion of everything else. So I didn't really get into exercise for stress relief or reaching out to friends when I felt, emotional or vulnerable. I didn't lean into that or learn those skills at all. So really what that set me up to do was gain weight pretty consistently from college onward. I had one period of time where I did purposefully lose weight, but that came back with a vengeance because I kind of realized, well, I don't think I realized this purposefully, but I found myself falling back into the emotional eating. And that caused the weight to just come right back, no matter what kind of habits I had built before. So that's where I found myself around 230, 240 pounds at the age of 26 to 28. That's kind of the highest that I ended up at. And that was where the emotional eating and the lack of other coping skills kind of got me.
My parents got divorced when I was really young, and my dad went to Northern Virginia and my mom was in Southern Virginia, and my grandfather did vegetables, right? Depression era baby. So I was fortunate enough to eat, quote unquote, like a pauper growing up a lot, and what's really interesting about what you said is the moment I went to college, like D Hall, they didn't have nutritional information around anything. So if you wanted to go eat an entire bowl of mac and cheese, if you wanted to make a triple decker sandwich, like you could just go grab as much of everything you wanted. And then I think about how many times I ate out at Wendy's, how many times I ate out. Pizza was a big thing in college, like all the time. And it gets so easy to get busy and to not think about what you're putting in your body. And for me as a business owner, right around 24, I'm starting to be on the road all the time. I'm trying to figure life out and move forward, and it's stressful as all get out. And the next thing you know, over a 2-year period, I'm eating fast food almost every meal, unless my wife forces me to sit down and eat something that she had prepared. And I found myself not quite as heavy, but I found myself gaining a lot of weight very quickly, a lot of cortisol too from all the stress.
Yeah, and I didn't have any sense of that at the time, but I'm sure it was through the roof, because I had no coping skills besides food. So,
Well, so
yeah.
what was the tipping point for you to go enough is enough, and like you were aware that it was your health? I mean, there's a whole just the awareness piece. Number one seems hard for most of us.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um,
because it, like you were saying, when you're young, the health piece, treating your body well on purpose to set yourself up for like good production capacity later in life,
yeah,
that doesn't feel urgent. And so it never gets done. It doesn't feel like my parents are going to be disappointed in me if I don't handle my health, or my friends are going to look down on me if I don't handle my health. Those things feel more important at that age. So the health never feels urgent. So the awareness never gets there, as you said. So for me, that tipping point was I started to have awareness, and it wasn't necessarily about my appearance, because that was more what prompted me the first weight loss round. Kind of, I wanted to look better,
yeah.
insecurity, all that good stuff. And
Mhm.
but the second time, and what I call the final time, is the piece of awareness that came up was I saw a behavior that felt urgent enough for me to try to fix it. And that behavior was like, normally in college and after college, many of us get into this habit of not really getting groceries proactively, kind of just relying on takeout, drive through, whatever's around, easy stuff. And I easily fell into that because I didn't think it was urgent to really learn how to cook for myself and spend that time.
Mhm.
But the behavior I started to see was not just in the evening, but I started to do it during lunch at the lunch hour too. Like I had a job where I had a split shift, 2 hours in between my shifts. And I was just going to a fast food location and just ordering enough food to get me through that 2 hours comfortably. Well, I say comfortably, but it was not comfortable. I was stuffing myself because I didn't want to think about the stress of work that would happen right after. I wanted to detach from the stress of work that had just finished up. It was it was a behavior that I felt I was doing secretly. I felt I didn't really have control over it, and that awareness, it also cropped up in me realizing that I didn't see my peers or my family members. I didn't see other people doing this kind of behavior. It made me feel very ashamed. It made me feel
Mm.
guilty constantly. So that cycle of guilt was so exhausting that that was the tipping point. I needed to ask for help at that point, because it wasn't the weight. I wasn't even thinking about the weight. It was that cycle every day of eating a ton and feeling guilty directly afterwards. It was
What did you take yourself through once that awareness hit? What did you do to start reversing it?
My first step was emailing, going on like Psychology Today and
Uh-huh.
searching disordered eating cognitive behavioral specialist or cognitive behavioral therapist. I was blessed enough to have finally gotten health insurance for myself at that point. So that was luck. I think that was a lot of people struggle getting help because that piece is not there for them. Luckily, I had that. So I started searching, and I found someone in my area who was a cognitive behavioral therapist first and foremost, but part of her specialty was people with disordered eating. And that's what I felt it was. I felt I was doing a behavior that I couldn't control, and had a sense that there was a different way for me to go about it. So I reached out to a wonderful CBT specialist who I still work with. Um, and what she started to do, on one hand, was prompt me with some very simple action focused questions that got me moving without thinking too much about it, got me doing helpful actions without getting bogged down in the why.
Mhm.
And secondly, she really helped me start to become aware of my thoughts, my patterns of thinking that were creating these behaviors. So the two really helpful skills, going for action without thinking too much about it, and being aware of the thought patterns that were leading me to unhelpful actions.
Do you feel like that's when you started shifting from blame and shame and guilt into just acceptance and understanding that it's almost like, a dog can cut its paw and it thinks that licking it is gonna heal it, right? but then all of a sudden it becomes a habit and it won't stop chewing its toes. And it's like you're making it worse. And that's why they have to put the collar or the cone on them.
Yeah.
Those have been my experiences with life. It's like, I'm not even aware that I'm automatoning right now. And
Yes.
is that what that really helped you with, to just become aware of, like, oh, I feel that coming on, I'm going to have this conversation with myself instead?
Yeah, I like that analogy of the dog learning a crappy behavior in the past and just it might have been helpful in the past, but it's not helpful now. What that automatic behavior is not helpful. Because that felt very much what I was doing. I was holding on to a behavior that I had no awareness of. It was just something I felt driven to do, because that was how I always calmed down from stress. And
Hmm.
me as a young adult in the working world was dealing with stress that I hadn't really encountered before. And I think that's why it came to a head that way. So when you say, um, how did you phrase it? Like, it caused me to start looking at it with acceptance rather
Yeah.
than feeling like a victim. That really resonated with me when you said that, because I had felt totally powerless and buffeted around by life before I started addressing this problem. I felt like I didn't have any proactive direction. I was just kind of following along. The degree told me to get this kind of job, and this one accepted me, so I'll go for that. I didn't have any kind of like any plan. So what this therapy kind of helped me do was sit down and think through, okay, I'm doing this. I have the power to do this, this, and this. My brain was saying this stuff is not an option, but when I think about it, there was a ton of options that I was just, you know, cutting out from my realm of possibility because it didn't feel like me. It just helped me have a more wide understanding of what I could do, what I had power to do. And two of those things really quickly were starting to drink more water during the day and starting to journal my food. And I think those two things were what helped very specifically bring my weight to a healthier place.
Yeah, so I probably put down more than a gallon of water a day. Um,
It's
and I
helpful, right?
find, huh?
It's helpful, right?
It has so many benefits that, like, if I get really busy and skip a day, that day I won't feel it, but the very next day
Yes.
I crash. From sustaining appetite to energy levels to everything, and I'm really, really grateful for that,
Hmm.
because I was in a similar situation for a very long time, and things had gotten really stressful, and I chose, instead of eating, I chose drinking.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
what ended up happening is I didn't realize all the weight gain that was coming from it, even because you're so close to the trees, you can't see the forest. And I ended up joining a very high level mastermind group, and they took a lot of photos of us. And of course, all of us want to see our photos, when you get back home. And I'm like looking around the room for me, and I'm like, I don't see me. And I'm like, oh, I'm the fat guy in the back. I was 60 pounds overweight, and I've got kind of a thin build, so it shows pretty easy. And I realized, Robin is 110 pounds. I'm 260 pounds. And she had been hinting at it, but just would not see it, would not see it. And when I saw it was the acceptance.
Hmm.
And once I accepted that as a reality, I knew that I had the power to make changes. And I did something called 75 hard to kick
Oh,
that
yeah, I've
off.
heard of that. How was it?
And it was awesome. Like, it was more of a mental than a physical challenge, but it was the consistency over 75 days. And one of those things was drinking a gallon of water a day. I got up to a gallon and a half because it just kept feeding on itself. And since then, I drink about a gallon of water a day, and that's been 4 years ago. Um,
Amazing.
yeah, and what I've personally found, and something that Robin had talked about, it takes about 20 minutes for our brain to register with our gut that we're full, something like that. And growing up and being an entrepreneur, it's always just shovel, 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 run, 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 shovel, shovel, shovel. And I had gotten into a habit of eating way more than was necessary to satiate, um, you know, my body. And Robin was able to slow me down and go, and she was like, I remember with tortellini, she's like, this is an actual serving, Chris. And I'm like, that's 5 tortellini. Like, that's not going to work for me. Look how big I am. That was the excuse I used. You're little. Yeah, 5 for you works. So, well, what I found is when I ate 5 with some red sauce on it, 20 minutes later, I'm completely full. Everything's fine. So it's like learning this portion control and learning to slow down, learning to enjoy the meal, learning to look up and have a conversation. It's like it was analogous to everything in my life. I was so singularly focused that I had put family, friends, life, enjoyment, all of it out the window for a someday effect. And I think you were probably in the same way going through this habit. It's like, well, someday I'll take care of that, but today I got to take care of this. And then it just, you have a conversation with somebody that's gifted in something and they ask you to ask yourself a couple questions. And if you're serious, it's amazing how simple things can produce massive, massive results. And how long have you maintained it now?
So I got to my like healthy weight range around April 2019. So it's been since then. So it's about
at the same time.
Yeah. It's every year that goes by, I kind of check it off. Like I'm beating the statistics here. Like this is, it's really rare. Because I think the pieces that you were talking about, that kind of mindfulness around food and that approaching food not with a shovel it back and get on with my life mindset on one end, and then there's another mindset of this is my only enjoyment of the day because my day feels like I just do it for everyone else, or I'm too stressed about it. There's 2 parts there. So I think the other piece is you can be really impulsive with food because it's the only thing that you let bring you joy. So I love that you brought that up because I think that piece was really important to me maintaining the weight, maintaining the healthy weight. I remember purposefully, like you with Robin, like giving myself a serving of lunch. Like if I would make a batch lunch, I divided it into servings that looked so much smaller than I was getting at the fast food place. But putting it on a plate, and this was really important for me, putting it on a plate, sitting down, putting vegetables around it, or putting a nice drink next to it, or a water, a coffee, and putting my fork down between bites. That really I think I just raised my gratitude for food because I was saying, this is kind of what your body needs. Let's pause with it and check in and do it slowly so we can really enjoy it. You made this on purpose. It's a great flavor. You love this flavor. Let's focus and enjoy the experience. That mindfulness was a whole different way to approach food than I had been used to. There wasn't the same desperation around it. And the more I practiced it, the more that desperation came down and down and down over time.
Yeah. And I mean, I resisted it a long time with Robin. So she had twins and, she's 5'3" and 110 pounds naturally. And when she had twins, she was up to 180 pounds. And after that is when she became very, very mindful of like, I'm not going to have the mom body. I'm going to take care of myself. And I remember her saying, Chris, there are two kinds of people in the world. There are people that eat to live and people that live to eat. And I took it at the time as a compliment. That's how messed up my head was. She goes, you are a eat to live kind of person. I'm a live to eat kind of person. So I enjoy the flavors. I enjoy putting things together. And at the time I was like, yeah, I'm an eat to live kind of guy. Like it's a function that I have to do. And then I have to go produce and da, 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 da. And I think she was talking about this whole mindset of life.
Yeah.
Why not slow down and enjoy your life? You're racing to the end. And like, what's at the end?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense to me. And it was like, and especially those of us that are on the East Coast for some reason, like we're taught to just like go, 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 go. And I, as a dude, fell right into that mentality, never questioned it, never thought it was abnormal. But when the results started showing in my body, and in my body also was in my relationships, I had to reassess. And like you were saying, I remember being in my 20s, and for the first time in my life, it was early 20s, I was like, oh my gosh, I can be whoever I want to be. Like, I thought I had to go to college. I thought I had to get a degree. I thought I had to get the corporate job. I don't know why I thought that. My parents never told me I had to, but there was this and I didn't fit into that peg didn't fit into that hole very well. And then all of a sudden I woke up one day and I said, I can own my own business.
Yeah.
And then from there, I created a new glass ceiling going, well, that's enough of that. I've risked enough. I'll just focus. It's like, no, now you don't have a very balanced lifestyle. And then I tried working towards balance, Megan. And then I found out balance doesn't exist in nature, but
No.
harmony does.
Harmony.
So
Oh, I like that.
all of these things started to create more of a flow instead of like all of these screeching stops and halts and health. And man, I've been so fortunate to like just open my eyes, look around, like creating this podcast studio. It was just an idea of, so many people do it from their home now. I want to do it in a professional setting with professional cameras and professional microphones because I can do it. I have a golf simulator 2 doors down. It's a 20-foot by 15-foot by 12-foot tall room with a big screen on the back of it that we hit golf balls into. And then every once in a while, we'll just have a movie night. And it's like going to the movies. The screen is huge. It's like, I never gave me permission to do anything for me. Everything was always for other people. And because I was always doing that, and you alluded to this, I then harmed me as a way to give me something back. And what a strange way to devalue ourselves for like trying to actually do things for other people. But that's psychology.
It's messed up, but it is so normal. And that's the thing that I want people to know. Like if you feel like you're in that cycle, it's not, accept it. Like, it's okay that you're experiencing that because that's a very human thing. Like, there's nothing to be ashamed of. It's awesome to start to see the cycle because then you're slightly outside of it. And then, like you said, you have this understanding of, I don't have to do the thing that I was brought up with the message that I should do. And I think that can be applied to anything that is any path that's in front of you. And I think it really helped me maintain my weight as well, because one thing that I can always say to myself when I'm working hard at, like, maybe I'm preparing meals for this week, or I'm feeling, oh, there's tons of parties, I'm going to have to go there and, like, you know, just enjoy a little bit and not enjoy all the things I want. There's a little frustration that gets, you know, raised up in that when we're surrounded by food constantly. But one thing that always helps me is reminding myself, you know, you don't have to do any of this. You could go back up to 230 pounds if you wanted to. No one would come here and yell at you or put you in jail. You have the full freedom to treat this, you know, party or this week as a shit show if you want to. Like, knowing that is fully a choice that's open to you. What do you want to do? And I love that prompt because it lets you just step back and say, what do I want to do? It gives your prefrontal cortex and your, like, higher self time to get back into the game and say, well, now that I have a bigger perspective of what the choices are in front of me, what is the most, I don't know, what's the best balance or harmony between my long-term goals, my short-term happiness, what's right for me? It's hard for people to remember to prompt themselves with that reminder, but it is always a helpful reminder.
When you said it was like secret and nobody knew about it, sometimes what I see we as people do, I coach a lot of entrepreneurs, so it's like behavioral issues just show up. They're very normal, right? And I'm not surprised by it because I've lived most of it and had to figure out a way to overcome it. But when we take the no out of something, the secret, by saying, I can do whatever I want to do. I can do it in broad daylight if I want to. Nobody really cares if I'm overweight or if I'm not overweight. And then we say, but is that what I want? No. And then all of a sudden it's like easier to say no to the extra large meal. It's okay to say, I don't want a frap. It's okay to say, no, I don't want the greasy French fries today. I'll wait and go home and eat fruit, or I'll make a salad for myself. And, it's just discipline. And I think the way you describe it is small steps forward daily. Little teeny behavioral changes lead to massive results over an extended period of time. Is that correct? And you have a coaching program around this, right?
I do. Yeah. And when you mentioned 75 hard, like my heartbeat started up because, like, me as a small change gal, like, thinking about 75 hard or something like that always puts up this immediate, like, oh gosh, that would never work for me. It's not true. I bet I could try it now, but I think my default approach and what I find works for a lot of people, especially when they're going for um, a maintainable weight, not just a
Mhm.
yo-yo really low and come back up. The understanding of adopting small changes that you feel you can see yourself doing when you're 77, when you're 82, adopting those changes with the full knowledge and commitment that they're going to be lifetime changes is I find much more suitable for a maintained low weight, maintained new lower weight. So that's why I love the small habit change approach. If you had told me at 230 pounds that I would have to start doing what I do right now, I would have never started, you know?
Yeah.
But all that I was told at the beginning that I told myself was you can start drinking more water, you can start writing down your food. Those things were possible and easy, and I felt 95 to 100% sure that I could do them, and that's what started the snowball. So that had such a transformative effect for me that I bring that to folks who want that for themselves. So that's a part of what I do in my one-on-one coaching, and I'm building a group program as well for a very specific part of the process that I'm excited about. It's not coming out anytime soon, maybe end of the year, but I'm excited.
Okay. So, what made this shift to want to really help other people do this? Do you see a massive need, of course?
I do see a massive need. I see a lot of myself in folks when they have relationships with food. You know, I see a lot of hesitance, a lot of resistance, a lot of reliance on restaurant food and takeout as the fun part of life to the detriment of someone's health. And I also see people as I get older, peers and family members struggling with the long-term effects of that. So starting to see like the signs of fatty liver or starting to see the signs of joint problems and chronic pain and sleep problems. And it makes me want to kind of bring what I've learned to a wider audience. And I think what started me wanting to make a change in my career is being in a nonprofit and seeing other people fired up by their passion in work. And I had never experienced that. And I started to look around like, what would fire me up? And this change in my life fired me up so much that it felt like a necessary and reasonable next step for me to go for.
You know, they often say that coaches need to be the best students, and
Mm,
I created a program in 2012 called Activating My Purpose, and it was based upon research that a guy named Dan Pink had done around the art of motivation. And what he talked about were these three words: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And the idea is when we give somebody autonomy, like Google does, they give 20% off time, right? In that 20% off time, you can't work on any of the projects that are on your plate, but you can work on something Google related. That's where Gmail came from, is in the
really?
20% time. Yeah. So, but this idea of giving people autonomy, um, well, giving people autonomy without any kind of purpose means that people tend to move in the direction that we don't want them to go. But if we can help people find their purpose and we give them autonomy, what we find is they master it. And
Mm,
because it's an intrinsic thing that you're doing. See, I believe that you're maintaining the weight because of an internal dialogue that you're having. I have that same dialogue now. I'm just consciously aware of it and I make choices.
ooh,
Mostly it's to eat less, believe it or not. I don't need nearly as much food as my stomach tells me I do, um, or anything. But watching you go through this process of mastering it because you found purpose in it and the autonomy of you doing it your way, um,
mhm.
gives you the ability to truly help a lot of other people just by helping awareness and conscious awareness of where to begin with it. And I
Yeah.
think that's such because when I was on your Instagram, which is where you have most of your stuff, right? You
Yeah,
have all
that's
your
where most of my free strategies and tips are. Yeah, definitely.
yeah, you give these beautiful little one sentence tips, and it's a sparking of a thought.
Mm.
And I thought that that was a really, really interesting way because where have you taken this from just learning how to maintain body weight to where you are now? Like, what do you understand that you didn't understand several years ago?
Ooh, I think bringing I think the understanding that my way is not the only way. And I think it speaks to your thought of can't just give people a way to go. You have to give them the ability to look inside and find their purpose. So like I can't tell them what their purpose is. So my way of doing things, I'm a very number-centered person. I love to look at data. I love to compile habit data and see what direction, I'm going in, where I can improve. Not everyone has those internal loves, and some people find it super clunky for themselves. So having a wider understanding now of the ways that I can bring that awareness, and not just in the number-centered way, but in a more like holistic way, I think has really strengthened my practice and allowed people to access this growth for themselves in a way that really fits their values, their preferences, and makes them feel more empowered because they feel capable of doing it. So that's kind of where I've grown from the beginning to now, I think.
That's amazing. If people want to wrap up, if people wanted to get in contact with you, what is the best way for them to find out more about you and to reach out to you?
They can email me at megan.gaul@partakemealplanning.com at any time. I answer that 24, not 7, but 24/5. And they can follow me on Instagram if they really want to get a sense, like you mentioned, of my approach, the kind of prompts that I give to allow people to find their method of becoming healthier, losing weight. If you're interested in that, my Instagram is partake_foodie.
Partake_foodie. And we'll make sure we put those links in the description. Megan, if you were to leave everybody with just one thought, this is interesting. I've never asked anybody this before. You're not going to be here tomorrow. You get to leave one thought. What is the thing that you would like to leave with people?
Don't wait to take action till tomorrow. Ask yourself, what is the action towards my goal that I can take today? 100% or 95 to 100% possible to do today, and just do it. Don't wait.
Just do it. Megan, I appreciate you being on the show. Everybody, Megan Gaul will have her information here, and do reach out to her if you struggle with weight, if you struggle with overeating, if you struggle with just understanding how to create a healthier lifestyle when it comes to nutrition. I believe Megan can definitely help you out, and do not hesitate to reach out. Until then, we'll see you in the trenches. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
I came from the mud. There's dirt on my hands. Strong like a tree. There's roots where I stand.
Hey friend, if you enjoyed listening to this podcast, please leave a review and subscribe to catch future casts. If you really enjoyed this episode, make sure you share it so others can benefit from it as well. I'll see you in the trenches.
Try to catch me howling at the moon.